One of the times in my life that I've learned how to read a Jewish text from encountering a real-life situation was when I was doing some work with unions and workers in New Jersey. I got a chance to meet some women, Latino women, who were working in a plastics factory in Paterson, New Jersey. And these women were telling me that they were working in an incredibly abusive environment. Their employers were stopping them from organizing. They were emotionally abusive. They were verbally abusive to these women. And it was an incredibly difficult place to work. And one of the things that happened was that the manager, just to be abusive, would put the oldest woman, who was in her 70s, on the heaviest machine. So these women ranged in age from 18 or 19 through this one woman who was in her 70s. And so the manager would put this older woman on the heaviest machine. And the other woman would volunteer to take over for her to take her place in this machine. And they were telling me how painful it was for them to watch her struggle with this machine that was much too heavy for her when they could have taken it over and done things much more easily. When they were telling me this story, the text that popped to mind was a very famous midrash about the situation in Egypt when the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. And in this story that the rabbis tell, the Egyptians would put, the rabbis say, the burden of a young person on an old person, the burden of an older person on a younger person, the burden of a man on a woman, and the burden of a woman on a man. And I'd seen this midrash thousands of times before, and I thought I understood it. I thought I knew it very well. But what I realized when I heard these women's stories is that I only actually understood half of the midrash. I understood why it was a problem to put the burden of a younger person on an older person. Of course, an older person can't carry a load that's really meant for somebody in their 20s who's in the prime of life. So that made sense to me. But what I hadn't really understood was why it's a problem to put a lighter load on a younger person. Certainly we like to be challenged in our work. We like to think that we're working to the best of our ability, but sometimes we also, most of us, like it when things are a little bit easier, especially with physical labor. It might be that young people don't really mind so much taking a load that's a little too easy for them. But when these women told me their stories, I realized that what was so difficult about younger people taking the load meant for an older person was that they would have to watch their older colleagues struggle with a load that was too heavy for them. And for these younger women, it wasn't about how heavy the machine was. It wasn't about the physical work. What was most painful for them was watching this older woman in pain and not being able to do anything about it. So these women, without knowing it, taught me how to read this text that I thought that I knew, but actually didn't understand at all.